I'm really not comfortable with any of this.
Yeah, I don't.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Miller.
This sounds like we're going to have a lot less need for employees as we reduce services. In Mr. Huckleberry's memo, he talks about we won't have the transportation needs, et cetera, that we need. And it sounds like, we're going to have to consider the fact that we're going to have a need for fewer employees. Has that been addressed, and has anybody thought about that?
But it's, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, but it's fewer employees during the time of COVID when we get back to business as usual, if we get back to business as usual. Why are we penalizing employees who, through no fault of their own, have no caseloads? I
guess as I look at it, it is the same thing for these private businesses that we're going to impose a shutdown on. It's no fault of their own. It's no fault of their employees that they've been hit and told to shut down without any consideration. And I think that's on the agenda today. We're doing it to them. We've got to look at ourselves, because without the tax base, without these people working, we're going to have less dollars, and we want to keep things all the same and keep our employees employed and keep paying them, but we're expecting the business community, all these small businesses, they can't afford to pay their employees, so they have to do layoffs. Well, if they have to do layoffs, we're going to collect fewer tax dollars. And if we're collecting fewer tax dollars, we're not being realistic if we're not considering this with this memorandum is talking about a serious shutdown. I'd like someone to address that and let us know what is the plan and how do we support our own employees, keeping them employed doing nothing while we're forcing others to lay people off, because they don't have the luxury of just increasing taxes or collecting taxes and paying salaries. They're stuck with the revenues that they get from their business, and we're talking about shutting them down. That's the hypocrisy in all of this.
Other comments?
I would like the county administrator or someone to address that, please. I didn't just say that for the sake of saying it. If I'm wrong, please explain where I'm wrong and how we're going to do this and how we're going to also make sure that the business community can still afford and our residential community can still afford to pay the taxes to keep people employed doing nothing.
Mr. Huckleberry.
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, I assume you're speaking of the issue of mandatory curfew, which would go into effect at 10 p.m. And the primary impact would be on those businesses that are essentially restaurants/bars, predominantly bars in the evening. And there are probably, if you look at the number of establishments, less than 15% of the total base. So you're restricting typically about 3 to 4 hours, depending on when the bar closes, versus, and so that is shortening the time period. That's what the process of curfew will do.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Miller.
But we're also restricting businesses from functioning at full capacity during normal hours. And according to this memo, it says this, when you said effective at midnight, that's midnight on the 21st, according to the memo. Is that correct? But we're also restricting the ability for business operators to function as normal all day long during normal hours. We're restricting the size of events and all of that kind of thing. So I think realistically, we have to look at this. We can't pretend that there's nothing going on in the private sector that does not impact Pima County, because those are the people paying the salaries of the county employees. It's that tax base, and that tax base is shrinking, and I suspect it's going to shrink even more because of these restrictions and these shutdowns, people can't stay in business. And Pima County is a service-oriented economy, and always it has been for a very long time. And that impacts us far worse than a manufacturing-based economy such as Maricopa County has. So I think we need to look at the realistic impacts on our economy versus other economies that aren't so focused on service industry.